Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2.
Ranked and reviewed.
So I don't know why we would even call it this video, I guess. It's not an episode.
Special edition.
Yes, the special edition of this Champs
Entertainment
Channel special.
Mm-hmm. we'll figure it out.
We'll figure out what to call these things. We don't do these often.
A special episode. Special collab episode.
Yes. So anyways, so if you haven't seen our first video for the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1 reviewed and ranked, then I mean we're going to go ahead and start with Phase 2. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
You don't really necessarily have to watch these in order.
Yeah, but you get an idea of what we think of the MCU as a whole. You got to go back and watch Phase 1.
Yes.
Just like the movies. You got to see all of Phase 1 to understand Phase 2.
Yeah, so basically we're just going to go down the list of the Phase 2 movies in order of when they were released, and we're going to give you the rank that each of us, we both have our own opinions here, where we rank it in our personal list of worst to best. So
throw the names up so they know who they're talking to.
Oh, yes. So right now you are talking to Walker Cheatham
and EJ Flemming.
I think I had the names up when we started. I just didn't forget to say them. So yeah. Now we're saying them. Anyways, so let's go ahead and get this thing started.
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and start with the very first movie in the
Phase 2,
Iron Man 3. All right, so try to do a very quick 30-second review of the recap for this movie.
Okay, Aldrin Killian meets Tony Stark at a party. Says he's coming up with the dude's idea. Asks him to meet on the roof so they could talk about it. He said Tony Stark says cool, but gets drunk and forgets. A few years go by. This idea is called Extremis, and it allows people to regrow limbs, but it has explosive side effects. At the same time all of this is going on, the Mandarin is making threats against the country over TV and the airwaves and whatnot. And Tony Stark sees this as a challenge and gives his home address to the world, which they respond with missiles. Now, Iron Man is pretty much on the run from both the Mandarin and AIM, which as you watch the movie come to find out is one and the same. The twisted reveal that the Mandarin is actually Killian himself, and Ben Kingsley's character is just an actor he hired. And after all of that, he realized that Tony doesn't need the suits. He is the proper solution to the problem. Destroys all his extra suits that he built in the downtime for in case problems arise. Destroys them all. Heals Pepper of her extremist condition, or makes it dormant so it can come back later. We don't know. And then end the movie. Yeah.
So a little over 30 seconds, but that's okay. I remember when the trailers were coming out for this one. I thought it looked really cool. I thought it was. I was really hyped, especially knowing, even at this time when I wasn't completely into the MCU just yet, to see that this was a new director. New director for this movie. But the previous two were by Jon Favreau, and I was really turned off by Iron Man 2. But yeah, to see this one was directed by Shane Black, who had already done Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and stuff like that. I was really happy. This was I think this was really one of the first indie directors to do an MCU movie. I think that's right.
Yeah, that was one of the first times they pulled a director that we had not heard of, had not done anything major like this, and brought him in to make a movie like this.
Yeah, and I was still pretty disappointed. I don't know. That's my opinion. I know you have a very different opinion of mine, but even though we ranked this, I believe in the same spot, this was ultimately, I think it was a pretty messy story. I know that Shane Black, like I said, wrote and directed this, but he was one of the probably 10th people to write the script for this movie. So it felt to me like it was obvious that this story had been written, had gone through several people's hands. It just felt sloppy, and then the third act, it really fell apart for me. I thought this third act was very sloppy. So that's why, for me, this movie is number 4 on my list.
And I believe it is also number 4 on my list for an entirely different reason. Phase 2 was just so good to me that it was just kind of hard to rank all these movies outside of one. But yeah, it was like I enjoyed Iron Man 3 a lot. I thought it was funny. I thought it was dramatic. It dealt with the PTSD that you would have of falling through a wormhole and back to Earth, and how like you all in the panic of, I know there's more to come. How do I stop it? But not knowing what the threat is going to be and how to stop it. So you're tinkering. You're always tinkering. And it actually dealt with that very well. And I thought that was a cool touch to Tony's character. And then the whole little boy angle was pretty funny too.
Yeah. And I applaud the MCU for its bravery for actually going through with the whole switcheroo with the Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty, like I said, pretty brave. Not a lot of big franchises would try to pull a fast one on their audience like that.
Yeah. I thought that was cool too, and I also thought it was cool how a lot of people said, well, they had to do the other thing, but I don't see it that way. I like to think that Killian knew about the Mandarin, so instead of trying to work with the Mandarin, he made his own Mandarin, so he could actually do what he wanted under the guise of the Mandarin. And then if it all led to the Mandarin, he got away scot-free. It was more like a bait and switch, where if I give you a Mandarin to capture, guess what? I don't go to jail. Yeah. He was one step smarter than Justin Hammer was.
Yeah, I think. But the other thing for me was if they had changed the Mandarin to somebody that was a better villain, I probably would have liked that a lot better. Mm-hmm. But I like I said, I've made no qualms in saying that Guy Pearce is not one of my favorite actors. I don't like most of his movies. Don't really like most of the characters he plays outside of maybe Memento. But for the most part, I was really disappointed with him in this movie. Particularly, but like I said, this was, like I said, it's my number 4. It's not a terrible movie, but like it was just one of the weakest. It's not even the weakest in my opinion Iron Man movie. We'll do our full list later on, but right now this one's my number 4 for the Phase 2 for that very reason. I think the bottom 3, particularly here, is going to be pretty bad in my opinion. So this might be controversial when we go a little farther down this episode and down this list.
And like I said, I gave it number 4, but we could go on to the next one.
Yeah. So our second movie for the Phase 2, Thor: The Dark World. All right. So very, very briefly, please give a summary for this one, because I don't want to spend too much time on it, or we might go too long.
Well, Dark Elf comes back from prison with the Aether, aka the Reality Stone. Thor has to stop him. Things happen on Earth called the Convergence of the 9 Realms. He stops that. Marvel sits back and goes, "This movie sucked," and pitches Ragnarok.
Thank you for not spending too much time on this one. All right, so and there's always going to be, well, I don't know. This one was the turd in the punch bowl for me. This is really, really a bad one, and I love what is it? Kenneth Branagh. He directed this, I believe. Am I right?
Did he? No, he did the first one.
He did the first one. Did he not do the second one?
I don't think he came back for the sequel. I think it was a different dude who did the sequel.
Oh, Lord. I hope he doesn't work again, whoever it was. Thor: The Dark World was directed... Oh, Alan Taylor. I've never even heard of Alan Taylor. Okay, he's done some Game of Thrones stuff. And... Terminator Genesis. Oh, God. Oh. Okay, yeah, this is a bad guy. Don't hire this guy.
No, Alan Taylor. I'm sorry. Again, just like we talked about on the episode 28 of the Movie Champ Show. Check it out, by the way, about the Batgirl episode. Yeah. It's a no from me.
Yeah, it's a no.
I like Terminator Genesis, but I understand why it has its critics.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad this wasn't Kenneth Branagh, because I love Kenneth Branagh. Oh, I'm. This is actually a little bit of relief in what could have been a very poor thing.
You could have been like, well, he's on my list next to Guy Pearce and get Gwyneth Paltrow. Just don't hire this man. But then he made Murder on the Orient Express, so all is forgiven.
So thank God he did not do this Thor. Maybe he read the script. I don't know. But this was bad. This was a bad, boring movie.
Yeah, it was very boring. It was this is the one that was like, this is like if you were doing a homework assignment. This is the one assignment you didn't want to get. No. It was like, oh, I gotta do that. Oh.
I thought one of the biggest problems is the tone in this movie is so dark, and it's literally why they call it the dark world, but still it's so dark and bland and boring. It was one of the hardest ones to get through.
Yeah, because it was the most generic villain motivation.
Yes. So if you didn't watch this in a theater, I don't know how you even could sit through this thing at home.
A funny story about that. I didn't see Thor: The Dark World in theaters.
I didn't either. I watched it at home, and it took me a couple times to get through it.
I fell asleep on it.
Did you?
Yeah. And I love the MCU, and this is the one movie that made me go.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, the Thor movies are all so different. From each other, all three of them.
It's like because they're like three different creative minds on it. Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah, that's
80s rock opera. And it was like, how are these the same character? But somehow Taika Waititi said, you know what? Those other two movies.
Yeah, he brought some life into what could have been a dead.
He said, do you know those paintings on panel vans? My movie is just going to be a 2-hour version of that. And we were like, all right.
Yeah. So if you haven't guessed, this is my number 6.
Yeah, my number 6 too.
Yeah, this was such a golly, it's such a disappointment.
Oh golly. Well, gee, I gotta go to the sock hop later.
Gee whiz, guys.
Gee whiz, guys.
Oh yeah. So I think we spent enough time on this. This was, like I said, pretty bad, pretty boring, pretty bland, dark movie. Dark and not just visually dark. And some of the tone was dark but dull. It was just bad, man.
Mm-hmm.
Don't watch this one if you don't have to.
No.
It doesn't even add to the universe. I think that's why this was almost like a reboot when they did the third one. This was like a reboot to Thor.
Yeah, it was because everything that was connected to Thor got destroyed pretty much.
Yeah, I mean they loosely hinted at what happened in Dark World and Thor Ragnarok, but still it was.
And then they killed all his friends pretty much outside of Lady Sif.
Yeah, so whatever. Even the next Thor movie would almost be a reboot too.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll go ahead and move to the third movie in Phase 2, which is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Okay, you can go ahead and give a little bit more time on this one than you did with
okay, Captain America Winter Soldier picks up a little while after the events of the first Avengers movie. He's like trying to figure out life in this new world and all this, and he meets the Falcon, as we know him as Sam. And he's like a vet as well, so they connect through their military experience. And as he's going through that, he finds out that he finds Hydra is still operating and discovers that Hydra has been infested in S.H.I.E.L.D. from the beginning, but that's not where his life really takes a turn. He comes to find out that the Hydra's best weapon is the Winter Soldier, a.k.a. his friend Bucky Barnes, a.k.a. the guy that fell off the train at the first one, near the end of the first Captain America movie. So now his mind is really racked that he thought his friend was dead, but here he is in front of him now. So now he's like trying to figure out, how do I save my friend, even because I know this is not him. And then also at the same time keep Hydra from destroying the world using helicarriers armed to the gills. And then there's Robert Redford's in there as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who's pretty much works as the Winter Soldier's handler. And it was a very well done movie. I loved it so much. This was the movie that made me go, not every movie has to be your standard comic book movie. This was more of a spy movie. And that was like, they made a spy movie starring Captain America and made it work. And yes, can I have another one?
So this one was actually written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and directed by the Russo brothers. This was actually the Russo brothers, I believe, second movie after You Mean Dupree. That was their debut movie.
Talk about a come up.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I mentioned Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely because they actually also wrote Dark World and the first Avenger, Captain America movie. So, but their previous works were pretty much the Chronicles of Narnia was like their bread and butter before this. Mm-hmm. They did all 3 of the Chronicles of Narnia movies. Mm-hmm. So, thankfully they recovered, I guess.
Yeah.
They bounced back after that Dark World, and now they've pretty much been writing most of the Avengers movies and the Captain America movies. Mm-hmm. So they're they bounced back pretty well.
Yes, they did. And every time I think back to Winter Soldier, I have to think about the first time I saw it. I was like, this movie is just so good. The acting, the drama, and everything that happened with the movie, it was just so good.
And this was one of the most realistic, I guess, the more grounded, I guess, this is what I mean. Grounded action spy fight, like the fight scenes and stuff. It's all really grounded, and
there really wasn't a lot of like gadget class powers in this movie because it was a Captain America movie.
Yeah,
it was more hand to hand martial arts, and you actually got to see what he like a lot of the combat training he had or picked up since he was last down.
This was outstanding. This was excellent.
Yes. And they also give you a true sense of Captain America's power in a way, too, in one simple scene. Mm-hmm. When he was chasing the Winter Soldier through the building, and he was running full sprint down the hallway, and the Winter Soldier hit that corner, Captain America was running so fast, he had to literally run into the wall in front of him to stop so he could turn.
Yeah, this is like a little bit more hyped up Bourne movie.
Yes.
I guess you would say. But, which is why I'm putting this one my number 2. This is my number 2 movie for the Phase 2.
This is my numero uno.
Ooh, you're number 1. Okay, so we're close this one.
Yeah, this is my number 1 of MCU Phase 2, and I'm not apologetic saying I love this movie. It was really good. And then when I found out the Russo brothers was coming back for Civil War, I was like, all right, we actually got somebody who knows what they're doing with Captain America, because the first Captain America was good. Excuse me. But now, how do you take this character and implant him in modern times? Yeah. And this movie shows you how to do that.
So this was one of the I believe in my, because I said the Phase 1 were the ones that all felt more comic booky, where this one, I believe, in my opinion, was the first time this became a real movie. This is the most cinematography in this, the acting, everything just took this out to another level in this movie, and you can see the path that we head on after this.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the Winter Soldier is like the blueprint of the MCU movies of how to make a villain sympathetic, how to make how to make the story personal, and all this, how to do all these things right. The Winter Soldier is like that blueprint now.
Yeah, I believe this was one of the, before, I guess, Age of Ultron came out, was one of the higher ranking MCU movies at the time. I think this one was like the biggest debut, and critically it was definitely the best one.
Because it was actually because it wasn't just good for a comic book movie. This was in that this is one of those movies that was like, well, this is a good movie.
Yes.
And then this is one of those this is when the MCU started to show that we're not making good comic book movies, we're making good movies starring comic book characters. Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference. The X-Men movies are good comic book movies. The MCU movies are good movies starring comic book characters.
Yeah, this was the first time you can say that, in my opinion.
Because you could easily strip away all the powers out of Black Panther and leave the story intact and it still be a good movie.
Yes. Okay, so all right, so we already ranked this, and we've already fawned over this.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one. Okay. Go ahead and summarize this one.
Okay. Space.
Guardians of the Galaxy, by the way, in case.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Part 1.
Peter Quill's on Terran, aka Earth. That's what they call us, Terrans in this universe when they're out in outer space in this world. Sees his mother die from brain cancer, and then he runs away because he's afraid to hold her hand on because he doesn't want to hold her hand on death. And he runs out the hospital room, and then he gets sucked up in an alien spaceship. Cut to some 30 years later, and now he's like Star-Lord. Mm-hmm. And he's like this great outlaw, steals and does what he wants pretty much. And, well, not great. No one knows what he is.
He's great in his own mind.
Great in his own mind, yeah. And then he meets up with a few other people. Gamora, the daughter of one of the Thanos' daughters. Drax the Destroyer, Rocket Raccoon, and Groot. And then through a few sets of scenarios and whatnot, they determined that the only way the Ronan the Accuser is not going to destroy the universe is if they work together to stop it. Because as Rocket Raccoon said, why do you want to say help? Because we're one of the a-holes that lives here, pretty much. And it was a pretty refreshing story to hear that. And then he determined. Then at the end of the movie, they find out that only reason why you were able to hold the Power Stone for so long is because you're only half human. Mm-hmm. And your dad was something that we don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And we find out who his dad is later on. But we won't talk about that movie now. But anyway, and then movie ends, and we had a fun ride the whole way through.
Yeah, I actually remember the trailer coming out not too long before the actual movie came out. And I had no idea what I was looking at. This was unfamiliar material to me. I had no idea what Guardians of the Galaxy was, so I was hesitant actually to go see this one. Just because the only thing that drew me in was the trailer was intriguing, but also because of the Marvel name. I said, "Oh, so this is a Marvel movie, and this attaches how to the MCU?" I had no idea. But I went and saw it opening night, and I absolutely loved this movie. This was
I'm sad
awesome.
I'm ashamed to say, out of all the MCU movies I watched and enjoyed, I only own 2 of them on either DVD or Blu-ray. This is one of them.
Yes, this is one of mine too.
This is one of mine. I own
this one on Blu-ray.
I love this movie so much. The soundtrack was great. The soundtrack pretty much made the movie for me.
Yeah, and this was also one of the first creative departures that we had in the MCU. Because even how as different and as good as the Winter Soldier Captain America was, it still felt like a Marvel movie. Where this one just felt like it was on its own thing. It was in its own planet and its own universe, even though it kind of was. But it was, like I said, it was so good. It was so funny. James Gunn was who was born to direct this movie.
Yeah, it was very bright, very colorful, very exciting.
And this was also the first time we were introduced to what they call the cosmic universe, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, cosmic, yeah. Cosmic. The cosmic side of the MCU.
Yeah, the cosmic side of the MCU, which is now where Thor resides. Too.
But Thor technically always reside there. He's just more of a fixture in it now.
Right. But,
he's he's more in the Guardians territory now, but based on the way Ragnarok.
Yeah, but James Gunn though he laid the foundations for what is now what is known as the Cosmic Universe.
Yeah, because see, the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book, no one really knew who they were. Like the regular audience wasn't going to know who the Guardians were if he threw them on the screen. So they pretty much did what they want. Reason why they worked so well because James Gunn got to do whatever he wanted with them because they were such a quote unquote minor league group within the MCU within the comic books at the time. Mm-hmm. He did what he wanted with them and made them a household name.
Yeah,
like he pretty much Guardians of the Galaxy is the Phase 2 Iron Man 1.
Yes,
he took something that no one really knew much about and made it a household name by the time it was done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is. I'll go ahead and rank this one now. This was my number 1.
This was your number 1?
This was my number 1, which is why you guys are probably going to be surprised if you see how my list is going right now, where another certain movie is going to go. That's not that surprising, though, and if you in the movie fan circle, not so much the comic book people circle.
So for me, this is my number 3.
Really? You're number 3?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Like I'm telling you, that's how good Phase 2 was.
Yeah, I guess. I'm liking Phase 3 a lot better. But yeah, Phase 2 was definitely in the right direction. But yeah, this was my number one, James Gunn. The soundtrack for this was amazing. The visuals in this was oh my god, it was revolution. Or yeah, it was new. It was so good.
Yeah, and
I'm using the wrong word there.
What was I getting ready to say? And the way they ended it by teasing this, it pretty much ended this movie by teasing the soundtrack to the second one.
Yeah.
I ain't never seen a movie do that before, where they end the movie where, oh, you like the soundtrack to this one? Wait to hear what's in the sequel. You be like, I gotta hear that tape.
Even though their end credit scene was I think it was one of the first ones that's actually led to nothing.
Which one was that?
The Howard the Duck post credit scene.
Oh, that was just to let you know that Howard the Duck was a thing in the throne room.
Yeah, it's a thing. I thought it was going to lead to something, which we at least we haven't gotten to yet.
Well, he did pop up again in 2. So
you did?
Yeah,
I missed it.
He was in the bar. He was like a quick "can you miss it" scene, but he was in the bar.
Okay. Well, anyways, yeah, this one I've watched many times.
Same here, and I might go watch it again, talking about it.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next one. Even though we didn't spend too much time there, but Avengers: Age of Ultron. All right, so you can go ahead and summarize this one.
Pretty much, Iron Man and them find Iron Man and the gang. They find news based on findings by Shield agents on the show Agents of Shield that Baron von Strucker has the Loki scepter in a Hydra base somewhere, and they have to go get it. So they go to the base, get the scepter, and then while it's in Iron Man's custody, before Iron Man actually touches it, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver mess with the Avengers a bit, and Scarlet Witch shows Tony something, which is pretty much all the Avengers dead in front of him. And that spurs him on to grab the scepter and actually use the power of the scepter with Bruce Banner's help to create an AI which would act like armor around the world, in addition to his Iron Legion that he already built. That in turn becomes Ultron. And as he's been downloading and deciphering all this data and everything in the computer, he determines that all the world's problems is because humans are here. So he devised a way to destroy the Earth so it would be nothing but his kind, metal. Because he feels they will run the world more efficiently. But since Jarvis has locked him out of the nuke codes, he had to come up with a different way. So he decides to nuke the Earth with a European country, which just happens to be where Quicksilver and
Scarlet Witch.
Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are from.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
I'm trying to think. Am I saying that right? No. Wait. No, they're not from Sokovia. They're from somewhere else.
Well, wherever they're from.
Wherever they were from, they had an interaction with the Avengers before, or at least Shield before, and they're not fans. Anyway, we find out Quicksilver, Hawkeye has a family, and in turn, we see the sea souls of Civil War. In the end, Ultron gets destroyed. Vision is created, which was supposed to originally have been Ultron's perfect body, and at the end of the movie, Ultron's destroyed. Tony steps away from the Avengers a bit, and then Civil War begins. I know I'm missing a lot of plot details here, but I'm trying to remember this off top. I haven't seen Age of Ultron in a while.
Yeah. All right. So I remember. I always like to go back to whenever I get introduced to these movies, and for this one, I just remember that there was a couple trailers that had come out, and we got teased pretty well with the Ultron character, who James Spader,
yes,
voiced, which was a great casting choice. Just unfortunately, he just turned out to be not that good a villain. His motivation was just, I don't know, it was just all over the place. This was a bad movie in my opinion. I know yours is a different opinion on this movie. So this is where we
this is where we have our Benny Civil War.
This was a bad movie in my opinion. The assembly we don't get the Avengers assembled till pretty much the very end. They all go off on their own. Most of them, anyway.
What do you mean?
We got the core group in the middle. They assemble at the beginning. They got the core group in the middle with Scarlet Witch or not Scarlet Witch, but with Black Widow and Hawkeye. Iron Man and Hawkeye and all them. Well, even Hawkeye, he goes off on a little side story, which was kind of stupid. And then just I don't know. Everybody was the story. Everybody was all over the place, and we didn't get them assembled to pretty much the very end. They assemble in the beginning, go off on their own things in the middle, and assemble at the end with this big, boring battle.
I will admit that the ending battle was kind of a ripoff of the first Avengers movie.
Yes.
That being said, I enjoyed this movie a lot. Ultron was equal parts menacing and funny.
See, that's probably what I didn't want him to be funny. I wanted him to be terrifying to them, but he was not. Like,
but you gotta take into account one thing that if you look at it, if you think about it one way, in a way, Ultron is kind of like Tony's son. So it wouldn't make sense that he would take characteristics of his father in a way. Yeah, his father's kind of a sarcastic a-hole, so it wouldn't make sense that his creation would also be a sarcastic a-hole.
Yeah, just the whole I've got no strings to hold me down. The whole Pinocchio bit of it. I wish that they would have followed through a little bit more with that, but it's just I don't know. It was so disappointing. What I was thinking, what I had imagined a story going in my head after seeing Ultron and seeing how freeing he was, how became whenever he knew what all he can do. There's almost no limits to what he was capable of technologically. But yeah, it just I don't know, it didn't lead up to much of anything.
But you also got to take into account that Ultron is smarter than he looks.
I know he's smarter than he looks.
Yeah, he even in this movie he's
yeah, he showed some of his how clever he was right when we thought he had died he had a scene with Vision that was pretty neat. I thought that was cool, but just
I don't think Ultron's gone.
I don't think so either, but I hope if they bring it back, they do a better job this time.
I think Ultron. They always think they've destroyed Ultron. That's one trope from the comics that's always been a thing. They've always thought they've gotten rid of Ultron, and then somehow, someway, he always comes back. Somehow, he always finds a way, a loophole or back door into something, and becomes a new thorn while they're dealing with while they're already dealing with something else. Ultron goes, "Now's my chance," and comes back. Yeah. So that's why I feel like some point in Infinity War he might even come back in that movie.
Yeah, and this was one of the where this isn't the first time that they kind of used the same color palette that they did in Winter Soldier, where in Phase 1 everything's was very saturated and everything. They kind of sucked the color out in this movie, which you can tell was a creative decision. That was. I don't know. That part kind of worked for me. I thought it gave kind of a grittier look. Just it needed a grittier story. I did like Andy Serkis in this movie though.
Oh yeah, our first taste of Ulysses Claw. He was pretty cool.
Still one of the. I miss him. Is all I'll
say. You know what? He may come back.
I hope. Well, I don't know how he will, but if he does,
because I just like I said before, why would you hire a known motion cap actor for a character who becomes for Ulysses Claw, knowing the character history of him becoming the living sound?
Okay, well that'd be dope if we get him back, because he's probably can be the best villain in the MCU. We're not in the third phase yet. There's still my favorite is still in Phase 3 right now, but he can definitely be one of the best villains also if he.
Oh yeah, and I never gave my rank to this movie yet. This is number 2 on my list.
5, right above that stinker Dark World.
All right, that's like your opinion, man.
It's just my opinion, guys.
You're wrong though, but that's fine.
All right, so now we are going to move on to Ant-Man.
The last one of Phase
Last
3.
one of Phase 6.
Phase 6?
Jesus, this is the
2
sixth movie, Phase 2.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Okay, shortly after the events of Age of Ultron, Scott Lang gets out of prison for his hand in robbing a tech company because they screwed everyone out of their retirement plans. And then in turn, he tries to break into Hank Pym's house, which in turn, Hank Pym's like, I'll let you come in and break into my house. And because I need you for something. I want you to break in and steal something for me. I want you to steal the yellow jacket so no one else can get their hands on it and gets their hands. They want you to break in and either steal or destroy the yellow jacket, which is Darren Cross's character's attempt at recreating Pym particles. So then he goes in, he just goes head to head with Yellow Jacket, and then this sees its own. Now this one kind of feels very standalone, but that works in this movie's favor. Outside of the one fight he had with Falcon,
yeah,
I thought that was so cool when they looked at the map of the building, and then they showed you that what it was, and then he was landing in on it. It was like, that's the building from the end of Age of Ultron. Who's on guard? And it was Falcon, Ant-Man, and Falcon fighting. And then Ant-Man wins in a way, and then Falcon goes on the radio and said, I'm going to need y'all not to tell Cap about this. But then it also played into the Civil War later, when Falcon remembered Ant-Man and recruited him to the team. And that's why I said Phase 2 is so good. Something's got to go somewhere, and with a heavy heart, I got to say, for as good as Phase 2 was, Ant-Man has to be number 5 on my list. Has to be.
Dude. Okay. Well, we did this the last time. The last movie, we went ahead and just gave it because y'all already know where it's at on our list. So yeah, mine for Ant-Man's number 3. It's this was actually one of the ones where I wasn't completely sold in a movie no, I wasn't, because Guardians I wasn't completely sold by the trailer. And Ant-Man also was one that I didn't think was going to work, especially because I was so excited when I had thought Edgar Wright was going to direct this, because I love Edgar Wright's movies. I've seen every single one of them, and I love every single one.
Now, going back on it though, do you think an Edgar Wright movie would have been too weird?
I wouldn't have minded it being weirder, but I loved what it was. You can see so much of Edgar Wright's influence in the screenplay and the way that the comedy is set out in this movie, because he did at least write the screenplay for this movie.
He did get a writing credit for that, yeah.
Yeah. So you can see so much of his influence in the screenplay, which I'm really hoping we see some more of in the sequel too. But to focus on this one, I thought this one was very a game changer as far as cinematography goes. This was so cool. I thought it was being like a Honey We Shrunk Ourselves style shrink, and that's not how they did it in this movie. This one, they played it out so awesome.
They actually made you feel like the world around you was still actual size, even though you were so small.
Yes. So,
like a water droplet was dangerous. Like water was like dangerous.
Yeah, and this one, the style of comedy, how you knew right from the first 2 minutes of this movie that this was going to be a pretty much straight up comedy, and I was hysterically laughing. Just start out right out the gate with this movie.
Sometimes, the MCU understands that sometimes in order to get ridiculous concepts over to people, gotta make it a comedy. Because if we're laughing, we're not thinking about details.
Yeah.
Like, okay, how is he shrinking? How is he growing? How is all this working? Oh, it's a comedy? Oh, okay. And then you bring this element into the other movies. It goes, well, we've already bought it for another movie. It exists now. You've actually folded it into this universe. Good job.
They're not using the comedy so much as a crutch, even going into this third, the third phase. They know when to use it and when not to use it. For the most part, and someone like, I feel comedy makes these situations feel more real, because not every situation requires
doom and dour feelings all the time. Sometimes things are just funny. Oh, hey, no pop shots, man. Don't see, man. You just had to take the one pop shot, man. Yeah, DC, pow. Why'd you shoot him like Malin Ackerman in The Rock, man? Come on, man. That wasn't nothing. That was uncalled for. I agree with you, but it was uncalled for.
Yeah. Well, and now they did. Okay, we're not talking about DC, but I will say that they are using comedy as a crutch.
now.
but Marvel, you are not.
No.
So far. Which is fine.
Yeah.
But
you have comedic moments, and in some movie, and when you set out to make it an outright comedy, that's what you go for. But then a lot of your other movies just have comedic moments.
Yeah. Well, look at what you just to briefly go into Phase 3. Look what they did with Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Few moments of comedy in there. It's not a straight up comedy, but the few moments that are in there really help the story go along.
Yeah.
So there was a couple corny ones in there, but they were forgivable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is okay. There is one in Phase 3 that they did use comedy as a crutch for, Guardians 2. But
I don't see it as a crutch when the first one was outright comedy.
I know, but they really hammered it in the second one.
I think
the story was weak.
I see what you're saying. They said, well, we're just gonna pad out the weak moments with just jokes.
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So they're not completely guilt free.
Mm-hmm.
They're Marvel. But yes, this was a great comedy.
But even then they did it better than a lot of other people would do it.
Yeah. But yeah, Ant-Man, funny movie.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool action. The villain left little to be desired, but still was pretty good for he fit in this story.
And the fight scenes were cool too, especially the Thomas the Tank Engine scene.
Yeah. that was kind of dope.
I thought that was funny the way Yellow Jacket was like, ah! And then he crashed and you just see this little train go.
I think that scene alone is kind of what really made me want to go see because that was in the trailer.
Uh-huh.
That was always in the trailer. And I kind of just cracked up laughing every time I saw them panicking and then just seeing that little train just tip over to the side. I thought that was pretty funny.
And they kind of doing something similar in a different way with the Hello Kitty pest dispenser in the sequel.
Yeah, there's going to be some the other end of this growing and shrinking spectrum going on in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this was my third favorite movie in this Phase 2. And Paul Rudd, I didn't know if Paul Rudd was a good choice for this movie. I thought it was really strange that Paul Rudd was cast for a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing the transformation he did to fit into this character was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't see anybody else being Ant-Man now.
And another smart move in Ant-Man's the playbook that they used too was instead of like making it a Hank Pym origin story, they just focused on the second Ant-Man and said, oh, Hank Pym had his adventures.
Right.
The Pym particles are already a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We just need you to buy that Scott Lang fell into all of this.
Yeah.
We don't need you to buy into the Pym particles and all that. By your mind, that happened long ago.
Yep.
We just need you to accept Hank Pym made Pym particles. Hank Pym has already been Ant-Man. There's already been Ant-Man and the Wasp. Janet Van Dyne has already done everything as the Wasp. So all those adventures have already happened. This is just the new story of a new Ant-Man, which was a smart playbook because now characters don't have to remember the complex Hank Pym history. And then the characters who remember the Hank Pym history know all those stories are still there. And then you have the Scott Lang story to tell.
Yeah.
So it was a smart move on all accounts that started at Scott Lang instead of at Hank Pym.
And what was funny is how this movie kind of was pretty much a heist movie.
Mm-hmm.
How Edgar Wright dropped out of this movie and then went on to make a
Baby Driver,
straight up heist movie, Baby Driver, which was an excellent heist movie. So he went just from one heist movie to the next, which is pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a pretty clever heist movie, especially when you have the ability to shrink as your weapon, I guess, one of your weapons.
And oh yeah, can I just get
your tool, not your weapon?
And Marvel Studios, hear me out on this. I just want maybe a 1-minute scene where Korg from Thor Ragnarok meets Luis from Ant-Man, and they just talk for 1 minute. I want to see that scene, Marvel. Please make that happen.
He is coming back for the sequel, right?
Who?
Luis.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm talking about an Infinity War. I just want to see.
I know. But
I just want to see some kind of interaction between those two.
Gosh. If it doesn't happen in Infinity War, then maybe it'll happen in
Avengers 4, huh?
Maybe because it's not gonna happen in Ant-Man.
I just want to see that, guys. Because Luis, and also the way he would tell his stories was kind of cool. Instead of like directly just flashing back, they just showed you the danger chain of how he found out.
Yeah,
but it was just still his voice over top of the events.
And Korg is coming back for Infinity War, which is neat. I have seen him in the
If you kill Korg.
Oh, man.
If you kill Korg. I'm just letting you know. If you look into my eyes, if you kill Korg.
All right, guys. So this has been our review and rank of the Phase 2 for Marvel MCU, or whatever, Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, again, guys, I am Walker Cheatham.
EJ Flemming.
You can obviously see our
social
medias down there below our name, and also the links are in our description. So, guys, thank you for watching this. Make sure you leave some comments. Also, check our most recent episode of the Movie Champ Show. Also, check our most recent movie review, and make sure you like and subscribe this video. There's a subscribe button right there below us. So,
I'm trying to point at everything, you guys.
Anyways, guys, we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.